Most companies have started carbon accounting, and of course, the majority of emissions usually sit in Scope 3. That generally means those emissions are coming from suppliers or portfolio companies. It's obviously a huge challenge to get accurate emissions data from potentially thousands of other companies outside your organisation. But it's really important that we start engaging with those organisations so they have an opportunity to provide this information over time. When we talk about supply chain engagement, it's not simply sending a form and asking companies whether they have a net zero target. We need to switch our mindset into thinking about the questions that we need to ask in order to replace averages that we would otherwise be using to estimate the emissions associated with those companies with actuals over time. Of course, it's not going to happen overnight. Of course, the majority of companies won't be able to provide you with all of that information, but it's imperative that we start asking the right questions and start bringing them along on that journey. When it comes to supply chain engagement, think about it like any other project. There are some clear jobs to be done. Even if you have 10,000 suppliers, we can break this down into some pretty clear steps. Number one, bring the internal team along on the journey. You're going to need sustainability team, if you have one, procurement, and finance to be part of this process. You can jump into the Sumday Academy, invite the procurement team to go through their educational course on why you're asking suppliers this information and how they can be involved and how they can support them so they feel confident. There's courses for the finance team to understand the jobs to be done around carbon accounting and how to deal with the data as it comes in. And there are general courses around this whole process, where the data is usually found and how to go about it for sustainability teams as well. So build confidence in the internal team that this is a project they're all part of. Step 2 is to confirm how you're going to engage with these companies. We recommend categorizing suppliers or portcos into 3 groups. Those that are extremely sophisticated and have been on this journey for a long time, those that are in the middle that have probably started and have other customers asking for this, but probably are still upskilling internally, and those SMBs at the tail end where there's a huge opportunity to showcase those that are doing great things and to take a really education-focused approach. So grab all of your suppliers and your portcos, doesn't matter whether it's 500 or 10,000, you can start that process of grouping them into those 3 categories. You will then think about what your communication is to each of those groups. You'll do up a cover email that you'll send out explaining the journey you're going on, why this is important to you, and the type of resources that you're making available to them. You can give them a heads up that they'll be expecting an email from Sumday inviting them to jump into the platform to access those resources and that support. Here you'll tailor that email depending on who the group is, being perhaps more firm or expecting answers quite quickly from that first group down to more of an educational journey for the last group. Step 3 is you'll send out the request. So you'll jump into Sumday, you'll upload your suppliers or portcos in each group, and you can send off a template questionnaire. We've already got templates that highlight the questions you would need to ask to not only be able to track whether they have a net zero target, but to be able to be in a position to make a judgment call on whether you would like to replace averages with actuals. It's a really simple process to upload the contacts, check the template questions, get your approval, and send those off. What they're going to get is context around each question you've asked, a quick tutorial on why they are being asked and why this is valuable to them. They'll be able to see resources on how to answer the questions, but more importantly, how they can embed this internally. They'll have access to an academy where they can upskill their internal team and invite those members in so that they can, again, start thinking about how they approach this inside their own organisation. It's really about passing on access to education and materials that helps them make that tangible next step. Or for your SMBs, they may not have the time or the resources and they just want to pass this on to their existing accountant. They can easily do that, and Sumday helps onboard their existing accountant as well. Step 4 is around tracking responses. So the responses will come in and you'll have a dashboard to see how that's going. Now, often people think it's too scary to ask, people won't have the data, so why bother? But you'll come to see that it's so valuable to understand where suppliers are or portcos are along on their own journey, so you can tailor your own strategy and communication going forward. This isn't about an unrealistic expectation that you replace all of your averages with actuals. If you have 5,000 suppliers, it's very clear that you're not going to have 5,000 perfect responses in the next 12 months. But it is about understanding where people are at, so you can be strategic in the type of support that you provide and the conversations that you raise. People are often doing this in small teams, so the more data you have around what companies need and the quickest path to progress and the tangible actions that need to be taken, the better you can allocate those resources. If you'd like to learn more, you can always jump in to the Sumday Academy or reach out, and our experts will chat you through common processes and some case studies to give you a good example and a good feel of how you might take the next step.